Okay. All right. This meeting is officially underway. And starting with a short reflection. And I thought that chocolate cake would be a good way to reflect. I guess everybody didn't get the news.
Last day.
I know that. I still thought Elizabeth would be here.
I think that's what celebration is. Maybe for the public. Who could say a few words.
Yeah, so today's my last day with Lake Forest Park. I have really enjoyed my time here. Was not an easy decision, decided to move, but it's just an opportunity I couldn't really pass up for some career advancement. Working what I want to be doing, but I am really sad to go into this. It is my favorite municipality I've worked for, and working with you guys has been kind of one of the big highlights of my job, and working on the long range forestry stuff for the city. So yeah, it's a big loss for me too, and I'm sad to be going. And I'm excited to get some of my feelings with some chocolate cake now.
Did you say where you're going?
I'm leaving to work as a West Coast and Pacific Northwest director for American Forests on their tree equity team. I'll be like working with cities directly to help them work on their canopy work and goals, and working with Washington DNR for the tree equity collaborative and Oregon. Yeah, looks like that. Some mayors.
So it's possible we might be working with you in the future.
Yeah, Corey and I were already kind of talking about what we could potentially do that American Forest. But yeah, I do plan on, today's my last day with the city. I do plan on coming as just an observer member to the next meeting, as long as I'm not travel, just in case there's any questions about the stuff we talked about or anything needs wrapped up.
Well, okay. You're a major part of the agenda coming up in a few minutes. That kind of follow up and continuity that we want to be sure to do.
Absolutely.
Do we have copies of the agenda, by the way?
It was sent around. I don't know if there's hard copies.
There's some copies right here.
No.
I guess Elizabeth is not here tonight, huh?
No, she has family. Yeah, family and stuff.
Thank you.
Passing on the cake.
Yes, I ate too much sushi
Oh, no.
last hour.
Oh, that's tough. Well, I don't think we're gonna let the moment just pass too quickly, Drew. I mean, if it's you were here less than 2 years.
Yeah, like a year and a half, or a little less than a year and a half.
Yeah. It seems like much longer than that to me. Maybe because of the seeing you regularly through the tree board. But it does also seem to me like a kind of an important short, even a short period, an important period of kind of stability. I think I've been kind of watching from a distance, I guess, as you have done the work that you do as the urban forest planner for the city, and handling the permits, that kind of stuff, which I know is it's not an easy job in all cases. It has been caused a certain amount of angst for arborists, our arborists in the past, which you seem to be able to do with real ease and professionalism. And I think that's been an important kind of hallmark of the time that you've been here.
I would actually say that for me at least, the greatest contribution for the things she's done that hasn't been permitting, because the permitting is sort of has to go on every day, but you've done all sorts of things that didn't have to go on. And working on the tree list and the exceptional tree diameters is what I know about. I know there's all sorts of other stuff done. And it's the stuff you've done above and beyond the day-to-day permitting. It's that I'm going to miss most. I'm going to really hope we have somebody who comes in and will be as good as the last two before you work.
Be perfectly blunt.
I think that's the goal, is to find the right culture fit and someone who can handle the public facing interaction and take long range stuff all the way through with you guys.
Well, I hope you'll help spread the word, because if you know people who might be willing or interested.
Yeah, I spread it to my networks already in the urban forestry stuff, and have been kind of looking to help narrow down applicants with the city as much as I can before I leave. So I'm feeling really good about the number of applications we're getting and the quality of them.
Yeah, you said a minute ago that there was like 40.
Yeah, I think there was like a decent amount, and then some you can just screen out, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's like the ones that are looking good.
I feel fortunate that I joined this group around the same time you did and didn't experience either the other folks who weren't as good, or the period without someone helping to steward this work forward. I know we were without someone in your position for quite a while. And I was reminded of it at the joint meeting when the CAC folks were so jealous of all of the work that you've been doing to move things forward on the tree canopy and urban forestry side, and just was reminded that how lucky we've been to have you in that seat thinking about these things all the time and moving the work forward and finding new opportunities for the city. And hopefully we'll get someone else doing great, but great to work with you.
You guys will put the new person in.
I've been around long enough to have been on this board when we had another good forester, urban forester. And then through that period, when we did 2 years of which I was chair of the committee, and it seemed like we just couldn't get anything done because there was turnover at the city. We didn't have the urban forester,
Yeah.
city forester, city, arborist. It was a breath of fresh air to have you here for that last period.
Yeah, well, I think the gap will be a lot shorter this time. They're already.
I think it will. Shannon's on vacation this week, and we advertised early. Shannon's very busy, but we're prioritizing. And while Drew was here, we're really looking for an in-person, front-facing, community-minded person. And with Drew's help, we've narrowed it down. So when Shannon comes back, that first round of phone calls will take place, because we don't really want to go back to that contracted, out of office, out of touch style for a period of time. Drew has really organized the program and the process, very well liked by the community, and so we want to kind of build on that. I'm secretly hoping she'll apply again. Then I'll be the first person to hire her 3 times. I'm committed to hiring her one more time in my lifetime.
Well, yeah, if I don't like it for some reason, I'll be back. It's one of my joke.
Well, you did already say before some people came in that you were planning to attend our next meeting.
Yeah.
So it's not like we'll hopefully be seeing more of you.
Yeah,
in
and
the future.
yeah, I'll come as much as I can. I don't know what my schedule and workload is going to look like, but at least during this transitional period, to just offer whatever I can to help, as long as just a person attending the meetings.
And if we were to plan, for example, a special event around trees at some point in the future, you might be somebody we could call on.
Yeah, you can always ask. I'll leave you guys on my personal email. I'm free. Might have to find the master gardeners. They're also asking me to help all this stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, yes, Larry.
I'll
Please.
just say, basically echo everyone else, especially, and I think you've done a good job helping to connect the tree board with the council more strongly. And as we move forward with adopting the revised tree list, the exceptional tree diameters, other revisions to the tree code, so I think your influence will be felt. But yeah, thank you for your hard work with the city, and yeah, best of luck at the nonprofit and continuing to serve as chair the Seattle equivalent of the tree board. Yeah.
You guys are more organized right now. I think I feel better.
Well, we have a smaller community and our tree board's been around longer, right?
Yeah.
So Seattle's got a tree board, I'm sure, has a stiff hill ahead of it.
Yeah, and I think there's just a lot of drop off and then staff, and everything, and kind of where you guys were, where it just felt stagnant, for a bit. So, but yeah, this morning I was like, I don't want to go in today. I have to say goodbye to everybody. And do the whole thing. But thank you.
Well, we're glad you did. Thank you.
Really
So,
look forward to it.
Congratulations.
How can we get in touch with you?
I'll send you all my phone number and email. It's pretty contact.
we move into the agenda? Are there any, we should take a look at the agenda. Have you had a chance to see it? Are there any thoughts or comments about it? Any motion to approve? We'll move.
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Drew, are you the fourth person in this meeting
Yes,
up there? Okay. Just making sure we didn't have any members of the public.
yeah.
Next, we have minutes. This is the minutes from our joint meeting with the Climate Action Committee. About a month ago. I talked to Elizabeth today. She's just working still on the, we have not looked at the minutes from our May meeting. And we'll take a look at that next time. But for now, this is the meeting from the minutes from the joint meeting. Anything on here that anybody needs discussion or modification? I thought it was a great meeting. I thought it was an interesting meeting.
Yeah, I did too.
It's a very sparse discussion of what happened.
Yeah.
So an awful lot of stuff was said for
It is pretty sparse, yeah.
a very small number of words, but
A lot of key dates in there for different organizations. Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
So moved.
And a second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I don't know, can you tell Drew if we have anybody online that's not, I don't
We
see on the
don't.
screen?
Yeah, just internal staff.
Public comments?
It's also the official policy is only in the room, public comments.
That's right, that's right, that's right. Thank you for that reminder. Well, let's see. Is this a new topic, communication? Why is that a surprise to me? It's kind of like reports and announcements. Do we?
we keep saying that, yes, we're wondering where things go.
Is there any reports or announcements or other types of communications that it would be good for us to hear? Larry or Mark or?
I could just give an
We can answer any questions you have. Typically, is if we receive any letters or inquiries directly to tree board. That's why it's on the agenda. We don't have any. But the council liaison or Drew or I can answer any questions or updates on any issues you're curious about.
Okay, and some of those may come to light as we move into farther into our agenda too, I'm sure, Mark.
Yeah, climate element. Yeah.
Larry, go ahead, please.
Yeah, just a brief update on the council, the big things council's working on. Last week, to Mark's delight, we approved the middle housing ordinance. And so it's largely in line with what was required of us by the state in terms of duplexes and ADUs. So that has been approved. At some point in the yet to be determined future, there's likely going to be a round two where the planning commission brings forward some other suggestions. And also be mindful of the tree code, so making it clear that if you build a duplex on a lot, the tree code still applies fully. So you can't, there's no special right to build a duplex and cut down a bunch of trees. So there's that. The other big thing, which doesn't really impact the tree board so much, is we're considering a levy lift for public safety. The council would need to make that decision this month. The official deadline is on the first week of August to the county to tell them if it's going to be on the November ballot. This would be a levy measure that would fund public safety, things like police staffing, 911 dispatch costs, jail costs, things like that. But we've had several council meetings debating, should we have a levy, what should the exact rate be, getting public feedback and the like. Let's bring that up, but I would say those are really the two big things that the council's been working on. And then, like I said, Drew or Mark will have an update item B about the exceptional tree code and kind of what the next steps there are. Yeah, that's any questions about, and we did appoint, I think it might have been after our previous meeting, but Ashton McCartney, who was a member of the planning commission, we appointed her as the interim council member to fill Lori's seat when she passed. So Ashton will be a council member through roughly Thanksgiving when the November election is certified. Any questions about what the council's working on.
Well, if I read the list of candidates correctly, you're very likely to win re-election. Does that mean we'll have 2 more years of stability? It's a liaison?
I think maybe that's something we should talk about offline, outside the meeting. Like, I basically I'm trying to keep totally separate election versus council business. But I'm happy to talk about that out of the meeting.
Here's a question that is there any indication at this point about state or federal budget issues that are going to affect Lake Forest Park?
That is a very big question. I mean, our budget is challenging to begin with, which is why we're considering the levy lift. I don't believe we get a lot of direct federal money. Most federal grants would be too large for us to apply for, in the sense that it's such a huge amount of work that it doesn't make sense for a $500,000 project or $1 million. It would only make sense if it's a $20 million project and we don't have a lot of it. So we don't have a lot of direct federal money. However, indirect, the federal government pays the state, and so there may be impacts down the line with the state funding various tree-related, environmental-related, the Climate Commitment Act, the State Climate Commitment Act. Will there be sufficient funding to keep that propped up? I don't have an answer. I don't know if anyone has a direct answer on that. I suspect there may be some challenging times ahead for environmental funding in general. I don't know if Director Hoffman has a perspective on that.
Same point of view. I don't see any direct impact at the federal level for a city our size, but increased pressure at the state and county level for sure, becoming more competitive as the biggest jurisdictions, their pot of money shrinks. So it just gets tighter at the local level, but not directly.
Any other thoughts or comments for Larry? Or it's probably too early to say, or is it what kind of scope or amount of levy lift that the council is discussing?
Well, at the previous meeting, the two numbers were either 24 or 28 cents per $1,000 for a 6-year levy. So if the median house is about $900,000, that would be about between $200 to $250 a year for the median home in Lake Forest Park. The other thing I will mention, it tree connected, the roundabout project on 104. We have the city has advertised for bids. Bids have been coming in. The city will be evaluating that. Because it's a public right of way, our public right of way code will apply. And so trees that need to be removed for the roundabout will be replaced in accordance with what the council passed, which is what you recommended. So priority 1 is replacing the trees in the 104 corridor. Priority 2 will be the the neighborhoods of the city that are currently lacking in tree canopy.
Okay. Thank you.
That culvert job removing trees up along 104?
That's a good question. That is a WashDOT project. That's around near the Lake Forest Park Elementary School. Maybe Drew or Mark would have more information about the culverts.
It's delayed a little bit. Originally, it was going to start June 16th. Now it's going to start essentially next week or yesterday, depending on who you talk to. For a couple weeks, it's just going to be preparation, movement of a utility pole, and power lines has already started. Preparation will turn into lane closures later in July. And they've asked for nighttime work hours so that there's relief on regional traffic. During the day, they can work, but no lane closures. At night, there will be lane closures with flaggers, lights. That leads to a 35-day total closure that will keep track of the exact dates. It's going to be chaotic locally and regionally, but the benefit of the project will get through it. The nighttime impacts will mostly impact the direct neighbors who are being communicated with and so forth. But the greater good is the traffic, the mobility, and the inability for them to close lanes during the daytime. So it's a balance. But as we get closer to the large scale construction and the closure, we'll be doing more announcements.
No tree impacts though planned?
There's a restoration plan and there may be some impacts upstream. There's a 100-year floodplain wetland right upstream before it goes in the culvert with a lot of down debris. That's what caused the blockage last winter. So, but I wouldn't call it impact because it's more repair, maintenance, and then mitigation. And so no net loss and improvement. So those down trees by the daycare will be removed finally. So they don't go into the culvert next winter. And then downstream it ends before any trees start.
Is there any chance they'll be able to get the closure done before school starts?
I really hope so. Originally I thought so. With July and beginning of August being the major impacts, something happened in mid-June where they finished the bid, they awarded the contract to Johansson Construction, and then Johansson started to try and renegotiate parts of the contract. That cost them the rest of June. So I think they're back on track. The utility pole was moved Monday. The power line should have been moved to the new pole yesterday. We haven't heard any negative comments yet. 4th of July, they're honoring. And so next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we'll really see if there's significant increase in activity. Signage, erosion control.
The culvert.
Color, okay, not taking more
Yeah.
around.
Well, there will be trees.
Yeah, that's at 104.
We're saying about before school starts because the detours around the roundabout tend to lead you past schools.
The roundabout's gonna take a lot longer time.
Yeah, and they delayed that. That's not going to happen for quite some time.
That's a 2026 project, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
we're ready to
this
move on.
summer we have the main one is the washout culvert on 104, but we also have Seattle City Light applied for right-of-way permits to do undergrounding on 522.
Oh, yeah.
Those haven't been approved. They haven't been officially submitted, but we're really worried about the cumulative impacts. If those two projects overlap in timing, that is too strong of an impact to the overall community. The two major thoroughfares through the city being impeded at the same time. So we're coordinating on the 522 one. And what Sound Transit hasn't submitted any applications for their project, not likely to until next January, February.
Would that undergrounding be the whole length of 522 through the city?
Not the whole length, but the from the Jack in the Box in Shoreline to, I would say, pretty almost to Town Center to, I believe, 41st. So underground, they would be trenching in 522, lane diversions, hopefully no detours on the smaller residential roads, but definitely an impact. And I would hate for 104 and 522 to be happening at the same time.
Okay,
One other
yes.
question, do we have any updates on other tree board members? I know you were assessing somebody recently.
Yeah.
Is that her name?
Mark and I did an interview for someone a while back, and then we had passed along our feedback to the mayor because he's usually the one who does the interview, and then I don't think there was anything else.
No, the after we did some preliminaries for all boards and commission, they acted on 2 for the Parks Board. There are 3 interviewees for Planning Commission, and they haven't made any recommendation or suggestion on a tree board vacancy as yet. So, but I think another round of recruitment might be in order in a couple weeks.
You okay, Victoria? Yeah. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Mark. We should move into first item under old business on our agenda, which is our feedback for the climate element of the comprehensive plan. Has anybody here already submitted theirs? individually to the website. So we should just gather those up right now, take a minute to do that. I don't know, my own sense in terms of going over the material was that my comments were pretty sparse. My own comments were, but I'd be interested in what thoughts you have in terms of additions or in terms of modifications or clarifications.
I had, I had two comments. One of them, I think the greenhouse gas emissions reductions targets are really kind of preposterous, to be honest. They're simply not going to happen. There's too many barriers in the way of reducing our CO2 emissions by 95%. I mean, that's just for the state or the city.
I think it might be helpful we can note that general comment, but is it possible to relate that to a section of the draft material?
Well, I think it's just mostly reporting it's mainly reporting what the state plans to do.
Okay.
There's somewhere in there it talks about reducing greenhouse gas emissions by, let's say, 95%. I guess it's fine to set your goals high, but
yeah, well, I think that's consistent with what King County has said.
well, that's it. Yeah, it's mostly a comment on stuff that's layered down from above. There was one thing I saw. Oh yeah, here the city of Lake Forest Park is aiming for the following emissions reductions targets: 50% by 2030, which again is going to be difficult since we get charged for a lot of the emissions from the airport, which we can't do much about. So those numbers are not. I mean, they're not going to happen, and I think it's kind of silly to set goals that you're bound to fail at. But that's not really the climate thing. It's reporting what the city has already decided on.
Okay.
One other thing though that did catch my eye, and I can relate this to something in the paper in the thing. As soon as I find it. Yeah. Okay. It says on page 22.
Well, okay, let's see, page 20, okay, go ahead, that's in the analysis portion, I guess.
Yeah. It says, well, there's a sentence here about the community generating so much carbon dioxide and it came from about 5 other things, primarily, and land use, primarily tree loss. And this is less than 1%. Well, tree loss is not causing a 1% reduction, a 1% increase in CO2 emissions. Trees, according to the report we had last year, trees are taking up, I think it's 2,600 tons of CO2 every year. And there's just not that many trees being taken out. I don't know where this number comes from.
Okay.
But it's not right. Yeah. I mean, tree loss is not causing us to emit CO2. Tree growth is causing us to absorb CO2.
Okay, well, that's noted. Other thoughts, other comments you have on, especially on the climate elements themselves, I think, draft elements? I had one, I had a couple. CE 1.1. I was just where it says, it lists permeable pavement as something we would want to do to reduce cooling. Sounds like integrate cooling, low impact development such as trees, vegetation. It was not clear to me immediately how permeable pavement contributes to heat reduction, I guess. I was going to think that maybe that thought should be included later and under drought and flood resilience. So my suggestion is that references to permeable pavement would be best under CE.-3. Okay. Anybody got other thoughts?
Well,
I'm assuming we're going to put together a page of these succinct little things and pass them on to.
I have been out of town for most of the last 3 weeks and I haven't had any time to go over it.
Well, the one thing that I thought of the last meeting was there was something in here where they talk about creating or reducing the impact of our of paved areas, creating heat islands. And Dick has been saying for years, the one place to start is in the Lake Forest Park Town Center. And I think it would be worthwhile calling out Town Center as a place to try to get some more greenery. But I can't.
I have thought that, well, obviously Lake Forest Park Town Center parking lot is the biggest uh impact here. It is really, it's extensive paved surfaces that create the impact. And if we don't want the town center management to feel like they're being singled out, we could have something relating to any parking lot that has over a certain number of spaces that must have a certain percentage of shaded canopy coverage or something like that, however it would be done. And the other large parking lots in the city are really at the two elementary schools.
I was gonna say, I wouldn't actually go based on parking spaces because the majority of their paved space is not actually parking. It's all of their like blacktop playview areas. and all
Yeah,
of that.
although, yeah, well, that may be true. It's hard, parking is, one way you can quantify it, I guess.
Yeah.
It's actually, it's the very first thing in here. It's the integrate cooling, low impact development such as trees, vegetation, etc. The one that Mark was talking about. Near high traffic transportation areas with elevated temperatures. That's here, such as Lake Forest Park, such as Town Center. And it's not a bad, maybe it's a bad idea to call out Town Center, but it's so obviously the most the area where the biggest area of pavement in one small area.
So high traffic transportation areas could be modified to include parking, large parking lots.
104 and 522 run right by Town Center, so I would call it a high traffic impact area. Maybe that's not exactly what that line element means, but
So if you're gonna get a parking lot specifically or parking spaces,
it's not traffic to the parking lot, you're right. Anyway, Dick has mentioned it so many times, he's got desensitized to it.
You guys all look at it too on your way in here. We're just having a meeting.
anything else?
If I could maybe just offer some
Yes,
broad
sir.
perspective. So if you remember the process last year when you were going over the other chapters of the comprehensive plan, as you're thinking about feedback for the 9 policies that are here, the comp plan, it's a bit of a value statement. It's a big picture. Where does the city want to go over the next several years, decades even? And so think about, as value statements, do these match what you think the city should be valuing in terms of the climate, resiliency, and the like? So I was trying to take that perspective as you're thinking back.
You thinking town center is too specific?
We
In that
definitely
regard,
mentioned
or
town
Parking
center.
lots would be better.
In the comp plan that we adopted last December, we definitely mentioned town center a few times. It came up repeatedly in the economic development chapter of the comprehensive plan. So if it's important to you, then definitely recommend it.
Okay. Well, it sounds like we want to include that. This is input for the process, and other people will be refining these and screening these out, taking a next step with them.
And as Larry said, it's very aspirational and very, these are the things that we think are important. Maybe it doesn't have to be put in, but it's the elephant in the room.
There is another element, well, I shouldn't use that word. There is another tool that will be part of the amendment going to council, and that's the implementation chapter. That will have items carried over from last year. We ran out of time to do an implementation chapter for the comp plan by December. So we'll carry that over. Anything related to climate element that's more of an implementation measure as opposed to a policy can easily be added to that draft implementation chapter by Cascadia. That would capture for sure. And at that level, that very much should be specific. Not as specific as a development regulation, but much more specific than the general policies that you see in the draft.
To draw that suggestion, then in that case, your parking point is good.
Another thought I had was, I was not clear about the difference between CE 1.3 and 1.5. 1.3, they're talking about partnering with local community groups, school districts, libraries, expand access to cooling and clean air resources during extreme heat wildfires. 5 is something very similar. It's establish or partner to support resilience hubs that provide cooling, clean air, essential services during extreme heat. Well, so my comment there is just, is there a difference, or should these two actually be combined?
They are an awful lot alike, aren't they?
They're a lot like, okay, where are we? Oh,
It's a little bit like resilience hubs is a new buzzword. They wanted to get it in there as a whole item, but I don't think it's a good reason to do it.
you don't think what?
I don't think it's a particularly good, just the fact that it's a new buzzword doesn't strike me as a particularly good reason for putting it in the plan.
Can I read
I'm
that?
not
over?
for buzzword.
Oh, yeah, you were there. You wrote this stuff, didn't you? You
Seeing if
explained
it
it all.
triggers anything for me. I don't know if Stacy is still with us and has any thoughts, but.
There probably is some element of the use of the word hub in 1.5 maybe speaks to a little different function than, I think of dissemination of information or broad resource availability. But 1.3 also kind of alludes to that too. So my comment is, it's just not clear to me, I guess, if those are really different thoughts there, or if they should be perhaps combined, or if there is a difference, it should be clarified. And maybe I just didn't read it carefully enough or study it enough to pick up on that.
It's not triggering anything for me that I can remember on why they were different, so
Okay.
I'm with you on that.
Some of the
Do you remember, Stacy?
No, I was just gonna chime in and say sorry. I have nothing to contribute. I agree with you.
Okay, so
They both say we need to make a place where low income people can get cool if they don't have AC and hot weather. And can get cool and other things they need,
yeah, yeah.
and hot weather.
It's low
That's really
income,
important.
it's older adults, people with disabilities, respiratory conditions, a full range of people, actually, I think, yeah. Very good point. The one thought that I think there was consensus on the tree board from people I've spoken with, I thought Richard was going to be here tonight, but at least he mentioned it. In 2.2, the term heritage trees is used.
Oh, yeah.
And I think there's pretty common sense among us that heritage trees is not the right word. We used to have a heritage tree program that some of us struggled for years to understand and make work. But it was just too vague a concept. So
Yeah.
I think the suggestion would be either just replace it with the term very large trees, or exceptional trees, is what we're moving towards in what we have in the code. So that would just be the thought that I would pass along, is to replace that term.
Of course, there hasn't been a chance for anybody to act on this since our last meeting, so.
I agree. The term heritage trees has a history that we don't want to be involved with at this point.
It gets complicated really fast. People feel strongly about it.
I'm surprised anybody numbers it.
Any other comments? I have one more.
Okay.
And it's just, it seems to me that there should be a general statement in there of something to the effect of encourage tree plant, a general statement about encouraging tree planting. I know tree planting gets touched upon in a couple of those, but in sense of in relation to stormwater reduction and heat island reduction. But I don't know, it just seemed like it would be good to have a basic statement that we encourage tree planting, and especially emphasizing tree varieties that are drought and heat tolerant. And we all agree to this.
Well, I think we can. Yeah.
I put it in like that. I don't know. Maybe people feel that, that idea is covered enough in the other points that are made in there. And the trees are certainly, show up in a number of those goals. But,
it may be we should have a separate line. The CE2 says strengthen lake forests. There we go. Strengthen lake forest critical areas and wildlife habitats by prioritizing natural cooling strategies such as planting shade fighting trees. I'm impressed by the fact this is right at the beginning, so that seems to carry more weight than CE9.
yeah.
But anyway, shade providing trees, expanding native vegetation, providing and preserving and storing wetlands and riparian buffers, adding shaded water sources, and creating connected habitat for corridors. And those are all tree related things. So the idea is there. Now, whether it would be better to say plant a lot of trees is just almost a separate item. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think encourage tree planting, but also the thought that our policy should be to be thinking about those varieties that are going to be better suited for the future climate. So maybe there's two parts to that.
Yeah, that's really different.
You okay with me working out some wording of that and putting it in there?
Mhm.
Drought resistance. That could go in erosion drought resistance, CE3.
Where would that be, Doug?
CE3 is drought resistance.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's one element of drought resistance is planting trees that are drought resistant.
Right. So drought is in there and heat is in CE1, heat resilience and smoke and heat resilience. So
But I don't think there's anything in the drought resistance. The chance to reread it. I don't think there's anything in the drought resistance about planting trees, drought resistant trees. So it would be very reasonable to add another element there saying encourage planting drought resistant trees. Or climate change resistant trees. There's also a heat element.
Okay. Any other thoughts about the climate element that we should touch on or include in this? We okay with me writing these up and running them by Victoria and sending them in? But I guess it's a method for doing that that Elizabeth will tell us about.
It's actually easier than that. We have a separate website where you can, after as a group, if you want a consensus, enter in the comments directly into the document in the section that you're talking about.
Well, I know there's an online method for doing that, and
Yeah.
would that be the way to go? Could we still? I don't want to lose our extra emphasis. I think because we are a tree board, and maybe have some maybe want to be sure that gets noted in terms of our input into that.
You can put that in the comment. You can put what our feedback is and say like from the
Okay.
chair of the tree board.
Okay.
It also doing it in there means that if you then ping this group and say, hey, I put in comments, we can go in and like your comments or comment on it and say like, I agree, do that. So we can do that all within the document and then the public can also see what we've submitted.
Okay. So again, why don't I try to refine these and check with Victoria, and then one of us, probably me, will enter them into that tool then.
Yeah. If all else fails, yeah, we'll accept any other method. Just get them to Alexandra, or me or Elizabeth. That's fine too. But we're trying to collect them in that one document.
There is a method for doing this. It's at the beginning of this climate report that was put out last month. Does that still work?
Yeah.
I think that's exactly what they're talking about.
Okay, that's okay. It can change fast, but that still works.
Okay, well, let's move on. This is where it kind of becomes the Drew Epping show, I think. We have three items here that we want to be sure we understand that Drew's been leading the way on, and we want to be sure that there's continuity and that we don't lose anything in the transition here. So
Yes.
the first one is the tree list and the exceptional trees, the work that we've done on that. And you want to tell us? I know we've been waiting for legal review.
Yes, we are still waiting on Kim, who was drafting the actual ordinance language. So we did like the strike through code version, like what language do we change? But the ordinance is the one that says, and whereas this, and whereas that. And she was doing a final review on the just strike through language as well. She really liked our changes overall, had nothing major to say on that, which was awesome to hear. Like thought we were on the right track. There were some memo edits that she thought could be changed. So Doug and I reviewed that and changed the memo a little bit to reflect kind of her comments. So I have this folder set up and I sent this in a zip drive to Doug and Mark as well. So you guys have all these documents, but they're also in the city share drive. So any of the planning staff can access these two if you need them. That has the memo draft in here and then the final like sizes. And then this is the SEPA in here as well. And so this is like a 50-page large document that's kind of kicking off our public noticing for this. So we can't start this process till we have the ordinance from Kim. And combined with capacity from the planning department, aka Mark, right now to help, start that process, that noticing process. And that's when we start collecting public comment, everyone gets noticed, then it starts becoming a more public project. And we need to go to city council and start that. So that's gonna kind of be TBD, on that one. So my one thought was then with the things we have ready to go immediately are as the updated tree list. And kind of bleeding into the second item as going to city council and asking them to accept the SFI grant, which is that $70,000, of money. So if like you feel like the exceptional tree code can't be, moved forward right now, that's gonna be a question really for Mark. I don't know if Mark wants to talk about potential timelines at all, but you can peel off those kind of other items if you just want to go and start working, on something. Did you have any input?
First step is legal. She has the issue. She likes the amendments. She's crafting the ordinance. The next two steps can't happen until that's done. One of the issues she's dealing with is I forget the legal term, single subject rule for ordinances, whether these can even be grouped or these are individual ordinances. So we'll have that discussion. As soon as we're through there, we'll have a comfort level to do the environmental review, but we'll also need a 60-day Department of Commerce review. We'll ask for expedited review because this isn't regionally significant to the Department of Commerce, ecology, and so forth. So that's likely to be shortened. But once those steps are done, then it really is public notice, multiple times at City Council, public hearing, and then action. Now, one thing that I'm comfortable with, but I haven't checked on, is that this comes from the tree board. And I'm not recommending that it go to the planning commission first, then council. But then again, I don't know that I have the final say. So I would also like to check in on that. I think it's a more simplistic and direct and appropriate way to come from the tree board direct to the council as opposed to stopping at planning commission. The only reason I bring it up is our code directs development regulation amendments to have a planning commission public hearing and a formal recommendation. But there's a key word in that sentence that says or implies most often or usually. So it's not a hard and fast rule. In this case, maybe the tree board can let me know their opinion. The options are tree board, planning commission, city council, or what I would prefer, tree board to city council.
Well, I've always imagined that it would be, and we've discussed it in the past, that we would take it directly to the council. Unless there was some really strong overriding reason why we'd want an additional input from the planning commission.
So are we talking about a combined thing that would include both exceptional trees and the tree list?
Yeah, are those two really linked still at this point in terms of dealing with both of them together?
Unless Kim has a single subject conflict issue with it, I'd like to take them together because then it just makes it simpler. We don't have to repeat each step 2 times.
And it is all in the 1614, like tree code section. So
Yeah.
I think that's why we're trying to just say these are two related, because we want to have that amendment to the code in the tree list. It's kind of nice to put it in with the other code updates.
Yeah.
If
So that's where I think we're going, but I just want to make sure to be inclusive in the discussion and get it right and not go backwards.
But I mean, it's really not arguable that the tree list plus the edits to the code to say, it doesn't say the tree list as a so-and-so date, I mean, those are clearly single subject. So those could be grouped together. Um,
I hope so. But I thought the same about middle housing, ADUs, and unit lot subdivision, but I was wrong.
Is Kim actually looking at the housekeeping items as well now, or not yet?
No, peeled those off because that was starting to really feel a little too disjointed at the time. And if this exceptional tree code for some reason gets gummed down with public comment, hearings, like changes, just didn't want to put too much other stuff tied to it. So right now, just the tree list, that's a really easy one to peel off if we need to. But if we had like all these other housekeeping things, it suddenly becomes a bigger problem to try to untangle them if it is happening. So because the exceptional tree code it isn't more significant, one, it just did not make sense to try to do it with a lot of other things.
Yes, Larry, please.
To provide a little context, the planning commission currently has a very large parking lot of things that they're working on. A lot of it's related to zoning and middle housing. To the extent if they were amenable, if the tree board and planning commissions were amenable to then not having to consider this separately, it would be one less thing on their very large plate.
Good thing. Well, how are we gonna move ahead on this?
Well, that's my preferred path. I would vary from it if for some reason some other entity told me I couldn't. So my plan is to get through legal, then do SEPA commerce and go directly to council.
Okay,
And by the time you do the SEPA and the commerce, and all of that, you may have a new urban forest plan by that time. It's kind of a
and that is rather than break them apart and try to do the tree list separately, Mark. You feel it would be the wisest way to do them both and take the time to work the issues with legal and SEPA.
Yeah. It's just easier for all parties involved, for commerce, for the public, for the notice, for the newspaper. It's just easier. Here are all the changes instead of just, oh, here's another notice on something I don't know about. Oh, here's something that sounds similar to the last notice I got. So it's just easier to group them together. I just want to have those individual conversations to make sure we're doing it correctly. Or both are correct. I would say in the most appropriate way for the material.
So we're waiting, it sounds like we're waiting for some sense as to whether two topics is gonna fly.
And the actual ordinance. So she's working on that. She's taking time off through the 7th. The next time I meet directly with her on a topic is the 8th. And so we'll begin some sort of timeline that starts with, hey, when do you think the draft ordinance will exist? And then go from there. She's pretty quick.
If I think about presenting it to the council, I suspect I'm going to end up doing some of this. I would think that changes to the tree list would be over in 5 minutes. I mean, I can't imagine anybody's going to say, no, wait a minute, you've included Liriodendron so-and-so here as a preferred tree. And, I just can't see that happening.
Yeah.
I can see a lot of questions about the changing the size limits. So I would think it'll be just sort of we have two things here. This is straightforward. The arborist made most of these recommendations. The tree board voted on it. You don't really think you know more than us, do you? I mean, I'm glad I put it that way, but
No, I think that's right.
but these are considered recommendations, and we can make arguments for why we need to do it to plan for the future, get rid of not recommend trees that are going to be attacked by diseases soon, drought, stuff like that. But fundamentally, they're just recommendations anyway.
So it sounds like we would not be in a position to go to council until September, late September, probably.
Yeah, that's likely, given that August is still uncertain about, which meetings are going to be held.
Yeah, right.
So if we have an ordinance in July and then we take that path, we go to commerce, they grant expedited review. That could be over in 3 weeks as opposed to 60 days. SEPA will run its course in 21 days. If nobody appeals that, that's done. then give or take a couple introductory opportunities in August, we're in September. I imagine we'll have one council meeting in August, but I don't know that that's been decided.
Yeah, that's right. We'll talk about that as we end the meeting today. We get a sense as to what our August agenda might look like.
Well,
Okay.
I would, again, if I'm going to end up doing a fair bit of the presentation, I would dearly love to have the city's urban planner there. Either the former urban planner or the new urban planner, because just an awful lot of the stuff in the tree list. I can just say this is what the urban planner said, she's right. But for the other thing, an awful lot of it, the wording and the reasons for putting different limits on different species, an awful lot of that comes from Drew. And possibly another urban planner could defend it pretty well. But
Yeah,
we're very comfortable defending the numbers, but not as comfortable defending the language, let's say the.
Larger tree cover, yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, I would really, really love to see somebody professional.
well, and Drew has mentioned, I don't know if it was a rash moment or not, but that she would be willing to provide a statement of sorts. Her feeling about that material that we'd be presenting. Well, I think that's right, and we're talking about that. It sounds like it's down the road a ways now, but I'm still hoping that you would be, one of the lead people in terms of making that presentation. As chair, I would feel obliged to be there, but as support, and I guess if there's something I could offer, and I don't know if there should be others of it, if we have a new person on board, that would be great.
Just some of the statements we have about the different species are really, to me, come better from the city's arborists. The arguments about why 20 inch or 42 inches is better than 20 and 40 inches. I'm very happy to talk about them. But why true fir should be included in our list of protected species. That's really working to protect the professional knowledge of the urban forest planner.
Is that a tree list question?
No, this is the exceptional tree. Exceptional.
It is an exceptional tree list.
No, the big ones are just the ones we're adding, which are oaks, is their own thing. Yeah, and then the everything else category.
Right.
So it's just the argument of the exceptional benefits and biodiversity that oaks provide compared to other species, and then how all large mature trees provide amplified benefits to ecosystems. So I can
even feel comfortable with that.
Yeah,
pretty straightforward.
That's pretty much the meat of the argument.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Because everything else is already on the list. We're just changing the sizes.
That's true. Yeah. We still have to see why we're giving red cedar more protection than other trees. Then, but that's I would still like to have an arborist there to support it.
Totally, yeah.
We can do it. We have a lot if we have to.
Okay, well, it sounds like we have some time to work that out some more. And we have Drew's telephone number, so things are all falling into shape.
Call Drew and ask for that.
$5 a call.
Shall we move on to the next topic? Unless Drew, you have anything else to be said about that? It sounds like the plan that we've outlined is the way. I think if the community development director thinks that's the way to go, I think that's how we should follow it, because he'll be involved in making it happen.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that path, and I'll keep cross-checking just to be inclusive.
So go ahead, Victoria.
No,
Sorry.
I'm good.
The SFI grant is next
Okay.
on our agenda, and you sent out some stuff this afternoon, I think.
Yes, again, those are all on the city server, but I just wanted them in your hands too. It's the major documents just related to the SFI grant. So this is one that's kind of ready to go, was put on pause while the federal stuff was getting figured out. Got information, it's continuing for now. So, they got the go ahead, so it can go. So basically can't do anything with this one until again, go to city council and they say we can accept the money. Because of the large amount of it. And so this is kind of basically I started putting together a call for bids document of what the scope might look like for, this project. And so I included the things that are required from SFI, and then I put a little chart in the end here saying this is needed, non-negotiable needed for the SFI grant, but then a couple things that are optional. And cost estimates based on what other municipalities have spent on this. And what other people have done with the SFI grant. Burien currently has this grant, so I got a little bit of cost estimates from them as well. So basically, if you did all of these things, that I mentioned, it would put you over the $70,000, but there is some money in the tree fund. So if you're gonna go to city council, and ask for this money, you could say, we wanna pull a 10 grand from the 80,000 we have in the tree fund and do a little bit more, or something like that. So that's something that you guys can start having
Hey,
conversations about.
for my benefit, Drew, would you just read, I'm having a little trouble reading it, the elements of the RFP
Yes,
that you
yeah.
just looked at on that chart?
So this is a little more abbreviated. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one, this is something that has to be part of the SFI grant: a comprehensive assessment of current urban forestry practices. So a review of what we're all doing, our policies, programs, practices, canopy cover, tree health, diversity, just based on all the data we have. So they'd be looking at the ecosystem services report, the past canopy data, like all of this stuff. And ideally, we'd have the KCD grant, which we're going to talk about next. We'd have that information for them to consider with this as well. So look at that. And then this is another part that is not required and is optional, is engagement in community workshops or some type of community engagement, where you're kind of like what the climate element group did, where they're reaching out in the community at events, hosting these open houses, getting in the community in some way to see how people are feeling, gathering feedback. I gotta put that there. And that kind of stuff. So you can do, and this is just kind of like brief language I have in here, so you guys can tailor this in any way you want of how you think it would be helpful. You can look at, if you like the way the climate element did too, we could look at, what theirs was set up like, put some of that language in here. But that's just a temperature read on the community and, how people, if people care about trees, which we know they do, and that kind of stuff. This is a required item from SFI, development of strategic recommendations. Oh no, this one's not. So this is an optional, I think, of they can then take the SFI objectives, what you're doing well on, what you can improve on, and what haven't you started yet, and then give you a strategic plan with actionable recommendations at the end of it based on the SFI review. So that can be used to inform updating the urban forestry management plan then that we have, or
It's very close to the heart of the urban forest management plan.
Yeah.
When you say urban forest management plan, is that community forest management?
Yeah,
plan?
Yes,
Okay.
sorry.
Yes,
Anyways, yeah, so this it's just like kind of boilerplate language. That I have in here, but you guys again are welcome to edit it in any way that you think would give you the best information. Just want to have a draft, scope and proposal thing for you guys. Okay, report compilation and presentation. So then this is them compiling all the findings that they got from the SFI review, and they're into a comprehensive report, and be able to give you that report, and document it, and then give you a presentation in a tree board meeting, and then they will enter all the information they got in the SFI benchmarking tool. Oh, you can tell I stole some information from Burien here. Didn't want to,
we didn't see that. I
reinvent
didn't
the
see that.
wheel. I know there's a forester over there. I said, can you just send me your info? Yeah. So and this part is required. And then this is one I thought was interesting, and this is something Apple is doing right now with their money that they got from a commerce grant, is they're conducting a citywide inventory of city-owned properties and right-of-way trees. So they're doing every single tree in city parks and the right-of-ways. And I thought it'd be interesting to do that and combine it with finding available planting areas for new trees. So while they're out there inventorying, if they find areas that trees can also go, that can be marked, and then we have a compiled list of available planting areas in the city in public areas.
What would be what would be other values of having that information? I mean, that's what came to my mind immediately too, was where there are gaps and where trees could be planted in right of ways and parks.
Yeah, so there's a couple city, there's a couple city roundabout projects, right now, and other city projects requiring tree removal, so we know where internally, would be the best place to plant for that. Knowing the average age, size, and species of all the city-owned trees is nice, because it just kind of helps, like, if a disease comes through, we knows how it's going to impact the city-owned properties, and, with the citywide one involves a lot of private property too, so it kind of skews the species makeup or whatever, so we want to see what the city should be doing on their properties too, more so. As far as increasing diversity, maybe if we're like, oh wow, that's a lot of invasives coming up, like do we need to focus on invasives management? Yeah.
You also, as you were sort of saying, if we discover that 30% or 40% of the trees and trees planting strips are cherries, maybe we should not be planting any more cherries, because if something, the brown cherry blight gets worse,
Yeah.
we're going to lose 30% of the trees. So that it's certainly important information for where we can control what species are planted. We can't control what species are planted in people's backyards, but we can control what is planted in the planting strips and in the parks. And if we take out those black locusts, knowing what else is in the parks would be very handy to decide what to plant in place. So I think it's a great idea. If we can get money to do it.
And if we have the data for it too, it's kind of cool. You can put them online and people can look at their park and see every tree there and what type it is. And Seattle has a kind of list like that for all their parks and street trees, and people love it. Just being able to access that information. And yeah, so there's a little blurb about it here: analyze and summarize the findings, resilience to future climate conditions and pests, management needs. And so right in there, saying what we want.
Do you recall the dollar amount that in Bothel's proposals?
Bothel's 13 square miles, so they're larger.
Yep.
So theirs was I think about 80,000 for that work. So my guess with the much smaller 2.5 acre size of Lake Forest Park, that we'd probably be sitting at about 50,000 was my estimate from talking to a few consultants. But that's just an estimate.
Okay.
So yeah, so I'd say if the grant is 70,000, 50, 60, 70, so you're probably looking at about 20 to 30 over, what the grant is if we did everything on this list.
And the last one is the audit.
Yeah, so to get that extra money up to 70,000, we had to say that we'll just have a certification body tell us if we qualify for the SFI certification and do a little audit at the end. We don't have to certify it all. That's just their way to get their stuff involved. It's great.
Yeah, I know how those
So
certifications work.
Burien, because of the uncertainty at the federal level, when they put their RFP out, they did not contract for that audit thing at the bottom at all, because they're like, well, if this grant runs out of money, then we just don't have to do it. By that time was kind of their thought process of that
So this would be work, for example, that we could use money we could use to hire a consultant. So to hire getting this work done.
Yes, so basically this document I put together, you'd edit it to say what you want to include, or anything, and then you would put it out for bid. And so you kind of just decide what your max amount is, based on, again, the tree fund has 80,000 in it, about, if you're okay, we are cool taking 30,000 from it to help with all of this work. On here, then that's something, talk to city council and say this is what we want to do and combine it with this grant, give us all this money. Or if you want to pare this down and only do some things and, not use that money or limit it here, that's what you guys kind of have to decide on.
And can you remind us the timeline on all of this? When it has to be acted on?
This Sustainable Forestry Initiative grant needs to be accepted by the end of the year. So, and they sent over a grant agreement, form and everything. So getting city council on board, step one, and then working with legal and has to finalize that grant agreement, get everybody to sign on to it. That's when you officially get the money.
Okay.
I would say,
And then if that were to happen by the end of the year, how long until the money has to be expended or reimbursed?
1 more year.
Okay.
Quarterly check-ins and reimbursements. So you get 1 year to do the work, have to check in with them on progress, and to get your money back 4 times throughout the year. So, or financial reporting instances for finance.
So it sounds like next steps would be us going through and determining what from this we actually want to do. and then taking that proposal to council to get approval to move forward on it, then putting that proposal out
Yes.
as a call for bids and going from there. Mark, what is your recommendation in terms of like how fast we need to be acting on that? The end of the year feels very soon to me.
It does.
And just thinking about if we're going to council for other things in September, if this is after that, that only leaves us a handful of council meetings to try to get that through that process. Like, does this need to be our priority for the August or the July, August meeting? So that
I think
from now,
so.
we have
Yeah.
it ready.
I think so because I'll be recruiting for the person that would help with the RFQ and the grant administration and the program and the update itself. So I would at the same time overlap the tree board's review of this document and the effort or the scope while I recruit for the person. If those meet up, the act of bringing a scope and a grant request to council is 3 meetings, pretty straightforward. And if that's the case, the end of the year doesn't scare me. Then, assuming the grant's in place, we would need to reserve as much time as possible to send out an RFQ, do interviews, and do a contract with a consultant council. That's the part that kind of scares me because I want to reserve as much time as possible for the consultant to actually do it. So I think that at the front end, having this document at the tree board at your next meeting this summer and getting comfortable with it is the first act. Then on the back end, it's being able to perform what is needed to update the community forest plan by a certain date. And then everything else in the middle just gets filled in. Well, one thing is certain, whoever gets hired for urban forest planner will be the primary on this effort.
And in the meantime, is there a point person at the city?
Well, me and Elizabeth with tree board, and this is the base document.
I would say that this, I mean, getting $70,000 to do tree-related work is a really neat thing to do. Getting information about the parks and the planting strips would be a big step forward from where we are now. I see if we actually have 80,000 in the tree fund, I see no problem at all spending 20 or 30,000 on that. It's taking a big step forward. I don't think you like the tree fund being used for sort of routine maintenance. Somebody said we should use it to pay the arborist. I don't like that idea, but using the tree fund for what I think was a very large step forward in our understanding of the city's trees.
Yeah, and I think that's an element. I think in my mind, the big picture is the community forest management plan. And there's certainly pieces of that we've talked about in this analysis that feed directly into that. So I'm hoping we get as much mileage out of this process towards a community forest plan.
I'm just focusing on activism.
Yeah, I know.
50,000 versus
and that'd
30,000.
be a great piece of it.
Yeah,
to understand that. How do we do this? I mean, would we be stepping on anybody's toes if we appointed one of us to kind of become an expert on this, to really get into this? And we, obviously work with city people in terms of moving this forward, but ours is just something we all got to do. We'll all have this information that Drew has shared with us. Do we just need to come to our next meeting ready to make that decision, or I don't know. I'm just saying to be sure there's some continuity. Should one of us just decide to take a special interest in understanding this and seeing that we move it along?
I think the question should be reframed as, is anyone willing to be the point person for this?
Oh, practical approach.
That makes no sense.
Is that something that anybody would take on, or is it an idea that makes sense, or are we already covered enough if we're all putting our expertise to play in terms of understanding this? Well, maybe we should keep thinking about it. And in any event, I do think the key would be for us, it looks like, whatever our next meeting is, if it be August or if it be beginning of September, to be ready to have educated ourselves about this so that we can, do what we got to do with that next meeting then.
That would keep us on track.
I will say too that Mike Martini with SFI, the company, is a great resource too for answering questions and helping chat about RFP stuff, and they can help narrow the scope down or provide any feedback. So I will give you guys his email as well, and don't be afraid to reach out to him. Like, they are here to help and facilitate a grant as well. So I've had a few meetings with him already, just ask questions. He's willing to come to city council, and help like talk at stuff. He come to the tree board meeting virtually, he's can be there for a good resource.
The information you just shared with us on this is in that email you sent out this afternoon.
Yes.
So we all have that available to us.
Should be, yeah. I don't think I sent it.
I didn't have a chance to.
I didn't just send it to the fair.
I don't think I
Yeah,
got
I
it,
don't
so
think.
Oh, okay, well, we'll get it out to everybody now.
Yeah.
I got your goodbye email with that one other one.
Okay, we okay with that subject? Feel like we're on top of it enough to move ahead?
Mhm.
So the next item is the King Conservation District canopy assessment.
Okay, it's a
Process.
little more straightforward. We have the scope of what, they're willing to do. This one's great because we don't have to hire a consultant or anything. The money is at KCD, so it kind of just moves in from KCD pile to a different KCD pile, and they have the consultant that they already have like everything scoped out with. So basically though, we're in the position where that KCD pot, is money for the whole city. So that's just a conversation between like Mark and the city administrator right now, and just, a few people at the city about making sure the priorities for the city are in line and everyone agrees we can use this money. So they need to have some internal talks there. Corey with our department has offered to kind of help facilitate that KCD grant because she works with KCD grants a lot, and it's a really small amount. So she's kind of can be the contact person for the KCD grant along with Mark to help facilitate that. Because that's an easy, quick little one. And then once we get sign off from the city, and we're ready to like do all that, then you'll get connected with the consultant doing it, and the consultant will probably come to the tree board meeting and just talk about what they can do, and make sure that the fields you guys want to do all get included, and just kind of define that scope together with you.
Okay.
So I'll show you kind of what.
You make it sound pretty simple and straightforward, Drew. Is that the way it's gonna be?
Yes.
Okay.
They do it for a lot of cities, and hopefully their new urban forest plan will be here kind of like on the tail end of that. They do this for a lot of cities, so they kind of have a good process, and it's pretty straightforward. This SFI one is a pretty new thing, it's a little more ambiguous and like that, but this is a very a lot of cities in King County have done this.
This is a new thing for KCD to be doing, I think. So I had some association with them in the past. It may be several years old, but so we have each homeowner contributes, I don't know what it is now, $15 a year. It used to be $10 for a long, long time. And so by city, then we build up this bank of money through KCD or that we can use for certain purposes. And I think it's about, your note said, Drew, I think about 130,000 right now.
Yes.
In our jurisdictional account with KCD. So that would be the funding that would be being drawn on there, would be money that exists in a spreadsheet in the KCD office somewhere.
Well, we have, in terms of what layers we want, we have the set of maps that was produced by the last canopy analysis. For me, that would be a place to start. We want this map again, because our maps we didn't get produced, and is it worthwhile redoing this map?
Well, that's a question that I had too, and will this work be comparable and comparable to, the past canopy analyses that we've had?
Certainly should be able to.
Is it going to be the same type of thing, the same type of results and analysis, so that we'd be really comparing apples to apples when we talk about 2023, which would be the date I think of this work would be based on. And whatever the prior date was.
Yeah, so here's the information I had. The map will show 2 different years and the change between them. So you have some flexibility on what years, pick. So you could pick the year that hopefully that we did the last data, would be ideal. And then we get 5 different groupings here: census block, watershed, zip code, grid, and then 2 custom. Anything we have maps like city-owned parcels, so they could show us the canopy of just city-owned parcels, which again is kind of nice. Right away, and or if you had a future land use area, those kind of things. And then if you wanted additional filterings, you can pay for those at $500 per thing.
Which is, we would want it for every individual lot, of course.
Yeah. So I can show you what Bopples looks like.
Doug, what did you say?
We want coverage for every individual lot.
Yeah. So this is what Boppel did, and if you look, they have each parcel broken down, and it shows you the canopy on the parcel and the total planting area that they've determined. So eliminating hard surfaces and houses, driveways. What is actually the max planting that's even available on that parcel.
Well,
I thought was
that's a
kind of
wonderful
interesting.
information to have.
Yeah.
Another bit of information would be useful would be how close are we have targets for what canopy cover we expect in different sizes of lots. And it would be nice to see, where we reach those lots, those expectations or desires, numbers.
Yeah.
I
It
forget
looks
what
like
they are, but
so they got to choose, their geography. So they did individual parcels like that, which we want. And then they did riparian areas, which, for some reason must be important to them. But again, we could do parks, city parks, you could do right away. There's flexibility there on how you want to show the data, and you get up to 5. They didn't even use all 5 of theirs. They only have 4 here. I'm not underachievers.
And
And so then there's this one, or another canopy in here. So it shows areas with low existing tree canopy, suitability. So they'll explain to you how they do this. So yeah, there's a lot of different stuff. And then this is all hosted in the tree plotter canopy through KCD, but they'll also give us the raster files. So you have them for our mapping or anything like that.
Just a question in relation to what Doug was mentioning. If you go to the canopy coverage by parcel, is there a way in there to then filter by parcel size? Is that the type of thing we could use our 1 of 5 for, or is that a default thing you can do once you're broken down by parcel or?
Yeah, I am not sure. I don't see it anywhere on here, but that's something we could ask them in the meeting.
Great.
And I think if it wasn't something you could filter on here, I bet you could do parcels over an acre or under an acre, maybe as one if you wanted to. But that'd be a good question for the consultant. And they did offer to set up a meeting with the consultant. So if you want to, I can reach out to her and say, yeah, you guys want to do it. If you just want to find out more about it, what's possible.
can't recall what our target thing. Larry, do you remember what our target canopy coverages are for
No,
different characteristics? I can't remember what they are. Yeah,
I know it varies by zone in that, so the single family, the 15,000 square foot zone has a higher target than say the 7,200 square foot zone.
I think it's 58% at highest size of our lots. It was 58%. I'm pretty sure I remember that. I know business districts were 15%.
And multifamily is also on the low end.
Yeah, that's right. But
Great.
so this is
Seems
really
like
a
a
bargain,
tool.
isn't it?
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
the amount of our jurisdictional account that we would use is 8,000.
It starts at 4,000.
Yeah.
And if you want to add on extra fancy stuff, that's 500 here.
So to confirm, we are waiting for Corey and Mark to tell us to do something, correct? That's the next step?
I think it's the other way around.
No, the okay.
Well, oh, yeah. You're right. let's see if I can summarize this.
The next steps, and
So there
then
is,
Yeah. In the
yeah, there
news-
is money in the KCD budget for us. It starts at 4,000. It's at a level where a director can sign off.
That's right.
From my perspective, is this something the tree board would want, and do you see use, and would it be used? I assume that's yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
If that's the case, the issue that arose over the last few weeks is we have one current KCD project on Mackler Creek that originally involved 12 property owners and restoration project. 9 of those have backed out. The research is done. There's remaining money that goes back into the pot. Once that's certain, we'll know what we're dealing with. But we have more money in the pot already to not have that be a factor here. But in that discussion, there's other departments that are now aware of the KCD money. And the way the city administrator put it was that internal competition is a great thing to have because it's great to have staff thinking of ideas and ways to bring benefit to the city. But don't go at it haphazardly. The selection and the prioritization of that KCD money goes through the city administrator. So I think that's where we're at.
even though ours is very small compared to, I think, to what other stuff, we kind of just see that like, yes, everyone's bought it.
Well, what other kinds of things would we be saying no to if we by using this money? What are the I mean, the restoration project along Mackler Creek, that was also came out of the tree board and was tree oriented.
Yeah. No, I don't know. That's how it originated. At that time, I thought, wow, this is a great idea. Let's do it.
I mean, it's not like a general fund, you can't use it for anything.
Yeah. No, but that conversation and prioritization with the city administrator just hasn't taken place.
Yeah.
When it does, we'll get a sense of the facts. What's in the fund? When can it be spent? What could it be spent on? What are the challenges or the competitions for it? And in my plan, I plan to argue for this 4,000 in this effort. I see the benefit. But that discussion has to take place, and then we'll see where we're at then.
And from KCD's point of view, Drew, what are the milestones or the timelines we need to keep in mind, or are there any?
I don't know. It probably just depends how many cities they currently have, all signed up. So I forwarded you an email from Ellen.
Yep.
And so in there, it had this information I just pulled up on the screen, and she said in there that she's more than willing to talk through this with anybody or connect to the consultant. So maybe it's worth it to like plan a little meeting with Ellen and just ask about timelines, or if you guys want to talk to Plan and Geo, so like when this is all done, you're just ready to take the money and you kind of know what you want to do. That might also help speed the timeline up.
This is funds that this is a project that it seemed like we could do, then they said we couldn't do, then they came back and said we could do, correct?
Yeah, they were like, it was gonna be free. They're like, this is free.
Yeah.
And then they said, ooh, you haven't done it with us before, so you can't do it. And I was like, okay, that's weird. And then they said, okay, well now we can add you for a small fee, and we want you to use your funds with us, because then we kind of just move them from over there.
Knowing the landscape of it, what do you think personally the chances are that if we don't act on this with relative speed, that answer will change at some point?
I don't think that answer will probably change. I think what'll happen is you'll get pushed further down the list by other cities, like utilizing this, process, or them signing up other people who have done it before or doing it for free, or something. So, because I know, last year found out about it last year, and they were like, okay, we'll put you on the list for 2025. And so, but that was near the end of 2024. So, that's my only worry is if you wait too long, then
just getting in their queue faster.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so there seems to be a consensus among the tree board, Mark, that we want to go ahead with this. So
okay.
So it sounds like some decision from you and the city administrator is forthcoming. And then how's the appropriate way to contact or notify KCD?
Oh, I would do that. Yeah, I have to call them after the holiday anyway. Figure out if we're going to do restoration on 3 lots instead of 12, or the whole project dies, one or the other. But that said, Corey is diligent. She's quick. She'll do most of the legwork. And the first step would be she would make the meeting or the discussion happen with Public Works, City Administrator, and Planning.
Okay.
Great.
Who is actually gonna sit down and say, these are the 6 maps we want?
Hopefully not me.
It sounded like Corey will bring someone from KCD to talk to us to figure that out.
Yeah, if there's, so I would say it will go through the urban forest planner if there is one, at the time. And if there's not, we'll kind of like throw together some coverage with Corey and get you guys connected and then have you guys say what you want.
Great.
Yeah.
And I just brought up Bothell because I knew when I looked at theirs, I was like, this is probably similar to what we want. So that might be a good place to start as a blueprint. Be like, well, we don't need that though. They're right here or whatever. We do want to see these and just kind of have an idea.
Great.
Some of the other ones didn't have it divided by a parcel. Like, why don't you want that?
But we can point, if anybody wants evidence that it was being used. Last year before, when we were making a map of where the South Transit should prioritize putting their trees, it was the results of the previous canopy survey we were looking at, the one of the whole red orange specs. That's the result of the previous canopy survey.
That's right.
We made a lot of use of that.
Nice.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll convey that message. Corey will do the initial legwork and the invite. So if I hate to ask Drew anything, if you could summarize that in 2 sentences and email it to Corey, and then we're on it.
Okay, great. We better move on. We got a couple of more items we want to be sure to get through here. So the next is an item of new business, and that's just outreach opportunities in the future. And there are 2 of them that I know of. There may be others. I don't know. The picnic in the park is scheduled for September 6th. And we had presence at that last year, and it was interesting to talk to people and introduce the tree board, talk about trees. That's a Saturday from what time till I forget what time it was. It's probably 10 to 2 or something,
Something like that.
whatever it is.
I should be available and I'd be happy to table with somebody again. It's a good one.
I should be available.
I also should be available. I could probably join.
I got Victoria, Stacy, Doug, and I'm willing to jump into that too.
I'm usually on away that week after Labor Day.
Okay.
It's your birthday, you said?
No, it's just, I was
Just travel.
a standing trip with some friends every year, the week
Yep,
of Labor Day.
Yep.
And that one I'm assuming will be coordinated by Corey.
Yes.
Do you want to reach out and claim a table for us there or?
I will do that.
Okay.
And then the other one is this opportunity for to actually, it's an opportunity to share a table at the farmers market on October the 5th. Our friends at the Climate Action Committee have a table, and they said they'd be happy to share it with us if we want to be at the farmers market on October the 5th. That time is from 10 to 2, the market hours. Same group of people sign you up for that?
Not here.
No, okay, oh, okay, good.
I might be here with that, yeah.
Maybe Dick?
I should be around and available for that as well.
Stacy too.
Maybe Stacy? Okay. So I can see if there's any more details there. I guess the 3 or 4 of us can do a little planning in terms of what materials we want to be sure is there, or if there's any special feature we can think of, anything we can do that adds to the.
What we did a
Education
few years
about
ago was get some Douglas fir seedlings from the state's nursery.
Which that should be good
Go-
timing for it.
And you have to order them far enough in advance, so we shouldn't put that off till the last minute.
Yeah,
If we want
Orders
to.
aren't open yet for this year. Last year, their pickups were like the last week in September and then the like second week and third week in October. So it may align,
Yeah,
but we can
and if we
see.
have to get them a little early, we can keep them moist.
Yeah.
Healthy, alive.
one of you know how to pursue that? See what the plan is?
I wasn't involved with that last time. It sounds like you know a little bit.
Yeah, I bought some for my property last year.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
And there's a good chance I'll buy more next year.
Yeah.
So there's a
Yeah,
good
kind of-
good chance I'll be going down there anyway.
To add a couple of zeros to your order.
Yeah.
Well, it may scale with size border.
I got
Which
the bigger and I will get the like gallon size, not the little.
Oh, yeah, we just got seedlings.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
And they were, in little individual disposable
Yeah.
sleeves, so sort of.
Do those survive pretty well enough to get?
I took 9 of them home at the end because there were ones left, and I think maybe 2 of them are alive today. I did not have good survival, but they were healthy, nice, healthy seedlings. I think it was just,
They
they got,
Douglas first.
yeah, they got eaten by deer, they got planted in spots where it wasn't suitable, one thing or another. So,
I'll keep an eye through the summer on when their orders open for this year and report back.
That would be wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, that had crossed my mind too. An obvious thing would be to have some seedlings that we could give away.
This is for the farmer's market.
yeah,
Yeah, picnic in the park will be too early for it.
Yeah.
For that source, at least. I don't know if there's somewhere else that we could look at getting seedlings from, but.
Are there any reports or any other announcements we need to hear? I think we've covered that. That sounds like a good plan for those 2 events, and I will follow up to coordinate the people who mentioned that they'll be able to participate there. Councilmember.
I was hoping I could ask you a question to clarify something. I think Drew had mentioned that she was splitting out the housekeeping items from the exceptional tree diameters legislation.
Just from everything, because I think it was just a hodgepodge of random stuff. So it was a lot to like go through and do that, and also with the middle housing stuff coming through, weren't sure if there was gonna need to be other small amendments here or there to kind of compensate for that.
So I just wanted to ask, so the housekeeping items, is there a plan for sending that to the city council? Or is that sort of on hold pending other housekeeping items to package it with?
Yeah, kind of pending, housekeeping, so it can just all be packaged as housekeeping, hodgepodge of random stuff, because, yeah, I had never taken something to city council here before, this is new, it just started to feel like a really big scope to be dragging there all at once, for the first time.
Okay,
And stop me if I'm out of place, there was one of the housekeeping items I would like to see. It's the one back to me prioritizing right-of-way tree plantings. And that currently it's level 1 in the right-of-way. Level 2, tree deficient zones. Level 3 in lieu of fee payment. And should there be something in between 2 and 3 which says somewhere else in the city where there's an opening? Especially if we're gonna be doing this canopy study that's gonna highlight, or sorry, the SFI grant is gonna highlight, hey, here's city-owned property that has space for trees.
yeah, we
So-
talked about that at the time, I recall.
and I was
I'm
wondering
not sure
for that.
why, I'll be honest, I don't know why it got taken out, but I wonder if that's the sort of thing. That specific housekeeping item, I wonder if that could be part of the exceptional tree. Is that?
I almost think that could go without saying. That we
We
should be
can
able to
make it
plant
so.
trees.
It's a slippery slope because then you'll have a second item, then a third item, and then it's so easy, we'll have a fourth item. Next thing it's a full blown cleanup. If you honor the 1 or 2, those are easy to put in. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
you're
just another
second, but-
section in the ordinance and easy to explain, but then
Okay,
in the doing, it becomes broader, and next thing you know, you're doing a full blown review of every word and every wordsmith opportunity in this section.
it does say, it also depends on how you interpret it. So when replanting is not feasible in the right of way corridor, replanting consistent with an off-site replanting program. Where feasible with preferred in the identified off-site replanting areas.
Is that the language? No, I don't recall the language being that.
Good.
It's confusing, it says where feasible. In preferred off-site planting. Priorities. Yeah, it's kind of confusing language, I don't think it's written very well.
I had to twist that.
Yeah, so I mean, that could be, I think it's vague enough, you could also just say we're doing policy interpretation this way. Mark as a band-aid. Also sound trans is not coming in until I don't know, however
Early
you want to handle it.
2026. I'm okay with easy no-brainer fixes, but they got to stay that way. I've seen too many where it's like, oh, why can't you just change that sentence? And well, I can. And then they look at the third sentence, then the fourth sentence, and then they add another section. Then it's a new chapter, and
I totally
then
agree.
my magical juggling act of juggling everything in there falls apart.
I'll send this to Mark, Larry, and just the exact language you're talking about, and have him look at it. Mark Hoffman, if that works for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one item, easy language to insert into the same ordinance, no problem at all. It actually helps.
Yeah,
I think wasn't it framed in terms of being another item on the what we're calling the housekeeping list?
Well, it's assuming it's more than a scrivener's note, but less than a policy change. Right. And so if the item you have in mind is of that nature,
Is it?
I would call it similar to what we did with middle housing. We're radar focused on this chapter, but as we're reading it, boy, look at this weird typo over here that means nothing. Let's fix that too. If it's of that nature, that's easy.
yeah, and this might be one where we literally can just add one word and change the
Yeah.
clearly
That's
change.
easy to explain.
So that might be worth it. I'm sending it to you and highlighting the portion and CCing.
Okay. But that's far from what I call a cleanup ordinance or cleanup code.
Yeah, I would say that wouldn't be
Okay.
okay. Cool.
So the other housekeeping item we've had that's, again, shouldn't be controversial at all is those things where it talks about the tree list as of such a date. And we don't want to get frozen with that date. And there's a height limit on some of those things. They're all references to the general tree list, so it makes a whole lot of sense to do them at the same time as we change the general tree list. And there's like 3 or 4 of them, Drew. 3 or 4 places that needs to be cleaned up, but I can see how they add up.
I think we have one more order of business we have to figure out, and that's what our next meeting is.
Yeah.
Oh. What have you heard in our meeting so far today that tells us about the next meeting? What are the agenda items? There was the
SFI, digging into the SFI
This if I scope.
and determining what we actually want to include in the bulk bids.
And then the KCD presentation invite. And then at least another update or clarification on the 1 or 2 ordinances. Because I'll be past legal by then.
yeah, where we are on those
Yeah.
ordinance status.
And there's no holiday conflict. I would say if you want to hold your meeting on the 6th, it just comes down to if you'll have a quorum and if you'll be available as a board.
Yeah,
I'll be out of town on the 6th.
I'll be out of town on the 6th. This is August we're talking about.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the next meeting after that is September 3rd. Well, the next regular scheduled meeting would be September 3rd, unless we wanted to schedule a special meeting.
And I'll be
Yeah.
out of that day too.
Oh, that's
So the first week of August,
the
first
Labor
week
Day
of
one.
September, or second week of August, first week of September, my trip's away this summer.
So there are several things for an August meeting that sounds like ought to be done sooner rather than later, so can we talk about the 13th today?
Yeah. So you're voting for a special meeting in August, or go ahead with August 6th?
It sounds like there's this SFI thing and the King County thing are both things that
I think they are. They should be, whether they could wait until early September.
And the ordinance updates stuff once it's hopefully passed legal.
would be nice to have too, so.
Well, I am.
Yeah, I'll be there. We could at least do that one.
Are you able to run that meeting?
I can do the 6th. I may or may not be able to do the 13th if we move it a week.
So I'm hearing that we should stick with, is it August 6th? Is that the next?
JP, are you available either the 6th or the 13th of August?
Not on the 13th. Oh yeah. Actually, I'm not available on both, although preferred the 13th. Not
Probably gonna be away both of it. We're leaving town on the 6th, and won't be back till the 14th and 15th.
I'm out of town the 6th and the 13th. So where does that put us? We want to go ahead?
You're gonna be around, Doug?
I should be around for both of those dates, yeah, but
What do we need to have a quorum?
We need 4, I believe.
we
So
have no, we don't know if Richard's gonna be.
if
available.
Richard is around the 6th, we can do the 6th. We can do our standard meeting on the 6th.
Okay.
I don't think we'd have any benefit of going to the 13th if both of you.
I think I'm right on that, aren't I, Mark? That the four members present would be a quorum?
Yeah, and I don't think any of those are going to be action items, so
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with 4. And if somebody that can't attend has comments, we can do that by email.
Sure.
Not a serial email, but get us your comments. That's fine.
Is that a plan that we can go with then? The meeting would be on the 6th. Victoria would chair it. And those of us who are not present have a responsibility to
Sure.
understand what's coming up on that agenda and get our input in before that meeting.
Yep.
Okay, that's perfect. Elizabeth and I will run the admin.
I'm sure.
That's right. I will check with Richard now. Well, is that enough? Keep us moving here. Is there anything else we need to discuss tonight, or anything else to take up, or loose ends?
Just another opportunity to thank Drew. I can't thank her enough.
Oh yeah, gosh. She's very busy here.
Yeah.
Making the most of your last 17 minutes with the city.
We're just Uber about the code.
Good for you. Well, thank you all. Thank you,
Thank you
Drew.
again, Drew.
Thank you all.
Good work, and good work.
Thank you.
I think we're agreed this meeting is over.
Move to adjourn.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
To officially-
End the recording, is that?